One of the biggest clubs in world football, Manchester United, currently sit 13th in the Premier League table. But following a much better performance yesterday at Anfield with a 2-2 draw, today we are discussing Ruben Amorim, Man United, and ultimately their future in this league. Now, Reece, we'll come to you first. We've got to obviously start with the game yesterday. A fantastic game of football, I thought. Both teams could have won it. And I think an interesting stat before we kick off is it's the most shots Man United have had away at Anfield since 2011. So potential, positivity in some of the stats. What did you make of the game, particularly from a United perspective as well?
Yeah, I think the old commentator pundit curse of they're going to lose 6 or 7 has come back to bite people on the backside again. Because whenever that happens, it never happens, do they? Teams tend to put up a performance, and they did. They got a 2-2 draw, a very good 2-2 draw where they've actually probably could have nicked it at the very end of the game. If Xerxes and Maguire had swapped places, that probably would have been 3-2 instead. But, you can't knock it. Lisandro Martinez, who put in a pretty poor performance against Newcastle the other day, seemed to redeem himself with the opener. And when Liverpool came back and turned it round, you thought, typical. That's very typical United at the moment. Lost their heads a bit, but they didn't. They created more chances. They got themselves in it, and Diallo again come up with a very important goal. And I think the 2 away games they've had, City and Liverpool, they've surprised a lot of us. But it was a good performance. But there's still a lot of issues at United that are yet to be sorted out. But from what we've seen, like I said, the fact that they're taking shots is a positive, because previously we never seemed to see them take any shot whatsoever. So a lot of positives to take here, but I think United fans will still be worried about just repeating the cycle like they did after the City victory. Sorry.
Yeah, Jamie, what did you make of the game?
It was to be honest, we've had Liverpool United games where they've been an absolute dross of a game, but this was very entertaining. So it's actually an enjoyable watch. Unfortunately for me, I wanted both teams to lose, so a draw is probably the best result in just my sort of happiness, not for anything for the league or the league table, really. But in terms of the actual game, though, United had a plan, and I noticed it quite early on in the first half. Was they were quite slow with the build-up, but it was intentional to not let Liverpool dictate the play, get the ball back quickly, and then get the sort of, Anfield crowd who are going to be up for it because it's United to get on top of them. And then that's when it could have got dangerous for United. So what they did is they got the passes, they took that extra touch when they could, and then made the 5-yard pass, kept the ball, and didn't let Liverpool keep winning the ball back quickly, and kind of try to nullify what Anfield can do to a lot of teams, or nearly every team. The obvious tactic from United was, let's attack down Liverpool's right-hand side, because from Roy Keane's perspective, Trent should be linked to Tranmere Rovers, not Real Madrid. It's quite a funny one with that, but Tranmere Rovers actually came back and tweeted saying, "We're okay, thanks," after that performance. I do think it's positive signs for United, but they had just come off 3 losses in a row before that, and they hadn't scored a single goal. So is it they can be up for the big games when they're playing City away, Liverpool away, and they lose the motivation, or is it sort of slowly starting to click, or it's just can things perform better for them when they're playing the better teams? It's kind of one of them weird situations, I thought.
But this is what Amorim should be saying to his players. Like, we've picked up 4 points in their 2 biggest games, away games of the season in particular. Realistically, we should be looking at 8 or 9 points instead, if we had, because we should have lost them 2 games. So they should have more points on the table. So he should be saying, well, why now? Why are you suddenly caring now? But when, the other teams come to town, you can't seem to, hit a cow's ass with a banjo, as they say. So I'm not quite sure how this is why United fans should be frustrated, because they'd say, well, we got up for these 2 games, but we should have more points on the board. But who's to say that from what we've seen, it's now going to click? I don't know. I just don't know.
One thing that I thought was completely different between that Liverpool game and the Newcastle game they played just before that was the midfield. The midfield against Newcastle was Eriksen and Casemiro. Now that has got no legs in it at all, and Newcastle bullied them. And it was 2-0 in the first sort of quite quickly, and it could have been a lot more if Newcastle were a bit more clinical and wanted to absolutely go for it. Whereas against Liverpool, they played Mainu and played Jutgaard, and both of them actually could sort of, run around, do the defensive work that, Eriksen and Casemiro just can't do anymore, just due to their age. I'm seeing it at City as well. It sort of, and when you don't have them legs in midfield, you concede a lot of chances and can get beat quite easily. So I think that's a big change from it. But that's probably a problem with the squad, because you can't play them two every single game week, or you're going to have sort of one injury comes in and then there's a problem. So there are reasons for why they probably lost the games in the middle, but really you didn't score it. It's not like they scored any goals in them 3 games before. So it is a mentality factor, I think, because they've not been very good for a number of years now. It's not like it's a one-off season where they're doing terribly. They've not been great for the last few.
Yeah, the problem is, to your point around that, it's like, why is it, and this goes well beyond Amorim, but why is it they can get up for the big games and then, Bournemouth at home, they go and get slapped 3-0? Like, it doesn't make sense. And I think one thing I kind of took away was, I saw Bruno's interview. I think Martinez in the press conference as well. Both of them came out and expressed they were happy with the performance, but ultimately they're almost questioning themselves, and they're saying it's a mentality issue, but they're questioning themselves as to why they can do that against Liverpool away, but they can't. They can do it against the current best team in the league on form, but they can't do it away to Wolves, or they can't do it at home to Bournemouth. And I don't necessarily have the answer to that, but it is something that Amorim somehow, some way is going to have to address if he wants success out of this United team. Because it's all very well and good going, Rashford doing that and everyone pointing at their heads and going mentality, but it needs to translate every week, not one in 5 game weeks where they turn up and the rest they just don't fancy it.
Yeah,
I think that's what's got to change.
Yeah, I mean, it's very strange when players go, I don't know what it is, there's a mentality thing there, but surely you have a mentality or not. Like, it's not difficult. It's not difficult to say, like, I'm up for this big game. Look, at the end of the day, the bigger sides or the better sides will play different towards you, wouldn't they? Wolves were going to shove players behind the ball. They're going to frustrate you. They're going to get on your nerves. And we can see for United, when they're getting frustrated, when they're getting annoyed, when they're getting angry, that it doesn't play to their strengths. They get broken down and that's it. And also, these smaller teams now know that they've got a great chance against Man United. Liverpool are expecting to now beat Man United. So a mentality issue comes into there as well. You expect it and it goes wrong. But United were going to up their game. Liverpool is their game, let's be honest. That was going to happen. But for them to actually go 2-1 behind and come back was a sign we have not seen actually in a very long time.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, actually, because I think at that moment, for probably a 5 or 10 minute period, at 2-1, well, at 1-0 it felt like it, and then at 2-1 it felt like it. It could have been a classic Anfield double, triple bang where you blink and you're 3-1 down. So you've got to give United credit for the character they've shown to stick in the game, ride that 5 or 10 minute, crazy period, and then bounce back. Once again, Amad Diallo, you have to credit the boy. I think he's one of the shining lights of this United team, irrespective of any manager and any, crazy signings they've made. He looks like the real deal. So I think it's just, how do they get the best out of players like him? How can he, can he get in the team every week? Can he be starting? Obviously, you need more than one player having a great season, but it feels like a starting point, and it feels like there is a little bit of light coming through for United. In terms of what Amorim needs going forward, getting a tune out of this team. Now, tactically, if we look at some of their recent results, prime example, Man City away, Liverpool away. And we this is something we've said for probably 2 years. United perform better in the bigger games where they're defensive and they sit back. So the question I'm asking is, could Amorim just embrace it and just become a defensive, kind of a Mourinho old school style, just shithouse defensive team who sits back, you're going to get countered. And that's just that. If it works, do it.
That's not really his style. The issue you get with coaches is if they divert away from their roadmap, their tactical plan, they probably lose that respect and credibility because it looks like Amorim's panicking, if you know what I mean. Oh, it's not worked, I'm going to have to change it. So the players are going to go, well, are you that good if it's not changing? It's a vicious cycle because he can say, well, you're not good enough to play in my system, and vice versa. He's got to stick to his guns here. I think they've got the players to revert to the dark arts if they need to. Bruno Fernandes, I think, being a shining example. Sandro Martinez being a shining example. Onana can do it as well. They've got the players to do it, but I don't think it's in Amorim's style at this moment in time. I think they're going to have to be a team that's going to have to go very front-footed. But if they fall behind, that's when it becomes probably an issue.
I think he's actually come out and said, I've been signed for my play style, like philosophy. That's why he's been appointed as, United's manager. So he's not going to do the sort of defensive dark artwork, and I don't think United fans would accept it, because it's all well and good to do that against City, against Liverpool, who are the top teams, but you can't do that when you play your Bournemouths, your Wolves, whoever they've got coming up. You can't do it against all of them. It would only work in certain games, and that is the City and Liverpool, which is the prime example for them. So they can do it in one-off games, but that won't be the majority of the play style going forward. And especially as sort of, he's come in and brought in his sort of 3-4-2-1 formation, where you've got the wing backs of Dalot and Mazraoui coming down the wings, things like that. You just won't. I don't think you'll see that defensive Jose Mourinho sort of style at United. Definitely not next season. You might see it in a few games for United. Like United have got Arsenal away next in the FA Cup. You'll see it more there because Arsenal are a top side. But let's say they were playing a championship team or a League One team, you can't do that. So that's where I think there's a difference on who you play, and you can't do it every week.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. And I mean, the other thing tactically that I'd kind of noted down was set pieces. We've seen it particularly probably in the last 4 or 5 game weeks. The just weakness, just complete and utter weakness at set pieces. And to me, we said it on the flip side for Arteta, and it's like, yes, you can criticise Arsenal all you want, but they've found a bit of a niche somehow, and they're exploiting it. So it's got to work on the flip side, and it feels quite easy. It feels an easy thing to solve. A lot of the Forest fans on the episode last week were saying it in the comments, but, Nuno saw the problem defending set pieces. He solved it. And obviously there's multi-factors in their success, but they've already seen an improvement in that. So surely for Amorim, he's looking at that going, right, clear weakness is conceding or defending set pieces. If we improve that, might save us a goal a match, and suddenly you're going to shoot up the table. Do you think that's an area that is valid or not?
It is, but I think it's also, I think set pieces is probably the one difficult thing to defend against, because I think teams will always have different styles. Teams will always have different approaches to it. And I think it is quite hard. It's very easy to shake that up if you're attacking, but to defend it, how do you always defend it? I think you just got to have common sense and a bit of luck. He'll work on it. He will work on it, but I think he'll play more to the players' strengths at the moment. That's what he needs to be doing more than their weaknesses, I'll probably say at this moment in
time. I think he's already trying to do it. If you watch, funnily enough, Arsenal scored, I think, 2 goals from corners against United. But if you actually looked at the training they were doing before the game, they were practicing defending corners. So it's not like it's something, I know it didn't work on the day, but it's not something he's not thinking about. So I definitely think he is, looking into that, because conceding the way they have from corners and sort of other set pieces isn't good enough. And that's effectively why they're down at 13th. Because at times it's been very poor from United, and it's not just a Ten Hag thing. Like, you got to remember, Ten Hag got sacked from being 13th. It's not like Amorim's, done something absolutely special and it's just on the players. It's sort of like the manager's got to do something. The players got to take ownership, because if you look in that defence, De Ligt and Maguire, they're very strong headers of the ball. So it's quite strange that they're conceding like they are from corners. Okay, they can't be everywhere in the box, but
Casemiro as well is unreal in the air. Like, you're right, it just doesn't make sense. Like, stick those three players on the most attacking threats on a corner and you will not concede. Stick someone on the line. Like, it doesn't feel that difficult to me. And maybe that's naivety, but you're right. The players they've got, it just does not make sense.
So speaking of sort of, I guess, United and stuff going wrong, what do we think Amorim needs to be successful at United? And when I say successful, for a club like United, it's winning a Premier League and it's winning the Champions League. Winning a FA Cup, a League Cup like Ten Hag did isn't successful enough. They should be, like, for their size of a club, whether you think they're first or second biggest in the country, they should be aiming to be competing for titles at least. So what do you think they need? Because they do spend money, but what exactly do they need to improve?
Well, let's start from the back. Onana, I don't care what anyone says, is a terrible goalkeeper. There was a few nice clips of him playing a high line at Inter Milan, and look, we all got carried away. We all said he's a great keeper on that Champions League run to the final. And United fans, feel free to comment and disagree, but Onana is terrible. He might save a penalty here or now, but his hands are made of poppadoms, and it's just not going to work. Like, every shot through, seriously, how many goals has he conceded where it literally goes through his hands? Like, you cannot, at this level, at a club as big as Man United, you can't have a keeper like that. You just can't. So, being brutal, I think they need a new keeper. To your point, Jamie, I think you're right on the centre backs. Look, Maguire's taken a lot of crap over the years. There is still a player in there, and him and De Ligt, I actually do believe, weirdly, they can be a good centre back pairing. They've got Euro.
The way they have is the three, don't they? So they'll have, what they played was De Ligt, Maguire, Martinez, and they've got Euro on the bench. So possibly they might need one other centre back just for any injuries, but probably not. They probably don't need a centre back as such.
And then, I know I'm going through all the bloody team here, but left back, what do you guys think of left back and right back?
I think it's quite straightforward. Like, first of all, this is a process. They have to take their time with this. They can't just keep putting very expensive plasters over these cracks. It's, an expensive plaster is still a plaster at the end of the day. It will cave when the water comes through. So I think it's going to take time. See progression next year. Look, if they finish 13th this year, they're more than capable of getting top 6 next year. We know that. It's going to take time. In terms of the transfers, I think if he's got the funds in January is the big issue. But from what I can see and hear is that Nuno Mendes at PSG isn't quite happy at the club. He's worked with Amorim before. He knows the system. He can play perfectly in that left back position. I think they should go for him first of all, because Luke Shaw's, spends more time in the hospital than he does on the pitch at this moment in time. So he's got to be the first one. He's got to be the first one. So they've got a really strong left back position there.
I disagree. I think Dalot and Mazraoui are good enough to play in that system, as
Dalot
shown by
yesterday. I'll have to admit that, but I think he can play left and right back. So
definitely. And Mazraoui's, I think, been one of their better players under Amorim as well. I think the main concern comes from their strike force. Goals in Højlund, Xerxes, Bruno Fernandes, and Dalot, and Garnacho. I was going to say them five are their attack, because he's pushed out Rashford a bit like what Pep did to Joe Hart. You have to make a statement in these clubs, and Rashford is that statement. Rashford probably won't. I don't think Rashford will be there next season. So there you're 5 attackers, and there's not enough goals in this. And that's been their biggest problem for the past 3 or 4 seasons. They've not scored enough goals. They've actually defensively been better, and attacking they've been nearly non-existent on it.
And on paper, that attack should be banging in goals. Before sort of Jordan, you jump in, I think with the attack it is an issue. I agree. I think letting Rashford go looks like it's going to be the case. The benefit they've got, whereas Liverpool don't look like they're going to get any money for Trent, they're going to get money for Rashford, and I think they'll get a good price for him, which looks good on obviously the balance sheets for PSR. So that's a good deal. I think Garnacho's days could be numbered if he doesn't back his ideas up. Højlund, I think he'll give a chance. I think this may sound silly now, but there's probably similarities to Gyökeres at Sporting. I think he has it in his locker to do it. He just needs the service and delivery, which leads me to Xerxes. There are rumours he's linked with Juventus in a swap deal with Vlahovic. I'm not sure. What do you think? I mean, I
don't see that happening.
I've heard. I think it'd be embarrassing for them to do that because he's only just got there. I know Xerxes worked with Motta at Bologna, and I watched Vlahovic's performance against Milan on Friday, and yeah, it wasn't good. It was actually very, very poor. He's having moments where he's still got 12 goals or something.
I watched him against City, and I thought you can see he's some player. He might not be consistent at the moment, but he's some player. That's a terrible deal for Juventus to go and get Xerxes, I think.
Xerxes suits Juventus' style more. Vlahovic is a good striker, but they've already got Højlund. I think they're too similar. I personally think they need someone with maybe a bit more pace, someone who might just want to linger around. I don't know, but yeah, I think it'd be silly to get rid of Xerxes at the moment because I actually think he's been all right from what I've seen of him.
I think that rumour is just because he got subbed off early against Newcastle, and it was the right decision by Amorim because Newcastle were battering them.
Any of those players could have gone off.
Exactly. And he was the most unlucky one out of the lot. That's why he got taken off, because there was one of many, and his position was the most sort of, you can take that off easier to replace it, so the system changes slightly. So that's why I think the rumours are going around. I don't see him actually being sold.
No, I don't.
If he wasn't in the squad against Liverpool, that's when you start going, okay, yeah, he might be going.
He offers something different up front. Like, I like Vlahovic. I think he's an excellent leader. I think he's a proper big centre forward. Imagine, just crossing balls into him and delivering balls into him. They've got the players to do that, but I think they've already got Højlund there. And I think Xerxes, as you've seen when he comes on, he offers that alternative.
Yeah, just to jump in on the striker situation. So I might be wrong on this. This is off memory from the game yesterday, but I think before the Liverpool game, Højlund had either had the lowest shots of a striker in the league or the lowest shots on target in the league, but the highest conversion rate in terms of shots on target. I think that was the stats. So United fans, correct me if I'm wrong, but that, assuming that is the case, my memory serves me well, that suggests that service is the issue, not Højlund. Which you can bring in Vlahovic, you can bring in Gyökeres, you can get Haaland off City somehow, but if they're not getting the service, they're not scoring. So maybe my opinion on Højlund is that there's something there, but he spends too long moaning and on the floor rolling about when he should be attacking. But
he's also not
correct. Does that suggest
he's also like I've seen him complete 90 minutes maybe once since he's joined United. So I still don't think he's fully fit, if that makes sense. But he's now been there for enough time to be fit at some point. So I think there's some fitness concern there, because I remember hearing a sort of rumour going, he can't play 90 minutes, full stop. It wasn't when he gets fit, he'll play 90 minutes. It was he cannot play 90 minutes. And that's a big problem, especially when your backup striker is Xerxes and he says, I'm not really a striker. I'm someone who sits behind the striker. So that's, I think, a massive. So if I was United, I would sign a striker as my number one target for me. Because I don't personally rate Højlund that much. I think he's been overhyped, really, and he's not produced much. Really, he can be a nuisance, but I don't see him going to score 20 goals a season.
But what do you do with him then? Because you can't really have an 80 mil backup striker.
That's a massive problem.
Yeah, but he's the pressure in it.
72
The
mil
goals
getting corrected in the comments.
Yeah, all the goals that everyone's expecting him to score all the goals. He's just a kid. Like, let someone else come in, take that pressure off him. Even if it's an experienced striker, let him learn from him how it's done. He's been thrown in at the deep end. No one's been there to support him from what we can see. You know, it's not like he's had Teddy Sheringham alongside him or Harry Kane alongside him to be like, oh, this is how how to do it. He's been thrown in at the deep end, and it's not been very nice for him. And I think he's still got it in his locker. But yeah, bringing someone maybe experienced just to get a few goals, it wouldn't necessarily overshadow him, but he could at least see how, things can be done.
Is there, sorry, I think we've gone too much onto the strikers. So is there anywhere else? Because I think centre mid as well. I think Casemiro and Eriksen, they need to get out the door, to be perfectly honest. Especially Casemiro, he's on such a high wage, and he's not the player that they wanted. Like he's too old now to be the player that's going to actually propel United up the league for that much.
Yeah, it was a statement signing, wasn't it? Really.
It was a kind of cover over the cracks, I think. It was going, oh, we've signed Casemiro. What a signing. And that he's been on a downward slope since then, really. So I think another centre mid for him would be a big one as well.
Yeah. I honestly don't think they should have got rid of McTominay. I really don't. Like, I don't know. There was clearly a player there who could do a bit of both the defensive side and get forward and score goals. And I do think a hybrid of Bruno, McTominay and Mainu could work. And also, I'll get called crazy for this, but obviously he's out for a while, but Mainu, Mount, Bruno, with Mount a little bit deeper with Mainu, I do think could work. And people think I'm crazy for saying that. I have seen the positive.
You're living off the season he had at Chelsea, or 2 seasons he had at Chelsea, and you think he's still that same player, and I don't think he is anymore. That's the problem.
Maybe not with injuries.
If he was that player, then yes, I can see where you're coming from. But I think from now, he just isn't that player. So I think Mount should be out of the question as well. But once again, that's another big-ish money signing United have made that's not working out. That probably better for United if he left. But it's unlikely anyone would sign him.
I think Casemiro and Eriksen will go. I think they'll try and shift them out to the Middle East now to get some money for him. I think there are a few players they could go for actually. I mean, just on who can help them out is the big thing, because obviously people are going to know they're desperate, so they're probably going to make them spend more money.
There is a price sort of added on to United trying to buy someone.
Yeah, I personally would look at maybe Ruben Neves. He's in the Middle East. I think United come calling, he'll go.
I think that's going backwards, Reece, to be honest. I think he needs to get in a 25-ish.
He's about 26. Like, you laughed at me when I said we were signing him for 50 mil, and he's been a snip.
I thought he was younger than that, older than that. Sorry, but
yeah, he's about 26.
We've not mentioned Ugarte. I've just kind of completely forgot he existed for a minute there. Is he not supposed to be like a week? Like, no, but Ugarte and main CDM, Bruno in front. Is that not a great midfield on paper? Like,
he's been injured as well. I think he needs that pressure off him. I would move Bruno more forward. I would also, if we're going to go back to Juventus for a swap deal for Xerxes, I would take Cooper Miners off him, because he has been a disaster at Juventus. He has been so poor. And if Motta can't get a click out of him, a kick out of him, let him come to United for a little bit. He'll pass those balls over to Højlund. Easy.
No, who's another one? I might butcher his name. Reinders? How do you pronounce it?
Renders, yeah, I know who you mean.
I think Milan. I remember him in the Euros, and he was a brilliant kind of.
He's at Roma, I think, on loan.
It's one of the Italian teams. I thought he was at Milan.
Oh, he is at Milan. Yeah, sorry, they've got another player at Roma.
I think he's a quality player. And I honestly think he would work in that system because he can do a little bit of both.
Just going back to the point on Ugard is I didn't forget about him. I'm just saying you don't need to replace him. You got him and Mainu in the midfield with Bruno in front, but you need other players because you have to rotate the squad. So that's why I think they need another one, because you can't just play them two constantly every single week. And Casemiro and Eriksen, I think, both need to leave in the summer for United. Otherwise you can't. Yeah, if you play the same two every week, someone gets injured, you're screwed then, aren't you? Really?
They've both been injured quite a bit themselves, haven't they, Casemiro and Eriksen? So like, they've got to go. Like, if they're your two choices, like I said, it's okay to be a backup, but they're not even being backup anymore. Like, you're relying on them. Like, the question should have been asked when Real Madrid were willing to let him go. And that's not being disrespectful for Casemiro, because you want to keep your best players for as long as possible. But for the money they paid for him, it made sense at the time. But they had to. They got to sort this out in midfield. It's all over the place, and it's meant Kobe Manu has had insane pressure put on him, and now people are moaning that he's dropped off. What do you expect?
Yeah,
like, he shouldn't be in this position anyway. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up things, we promised predictions at the start of the episode. And United fans, if you are watching, please do put your own predictions below, and obviously like and comment and subscribe. Where do we think United can finish this season in the league? And more importantly, do we actually think they can win silverware? And I mean proper silverware, Premier League, Champions League, under Amorim? Or will he be sacked before that ever happens? Jamie, we'll come to you first.
Weirdly, I think it'll be a blessing for them, but I think they're going to come like 9th at the end of the season. It means no European football. I think that will be a blessing for him for next season, just to let him play Premier League, get an understanding what Amorim wants, and that could help them, aim for the sort of Champions League spots next season. In terms of can they actually win the Premier League and Champions League, I don't see it, but someone's going to have to do it, because United are too big of a club. They spend too much money to not get back up to being title challengers, at least. But it's very difficult, because he's not going to be able to have sort of, a 4-year spell where he rebuilds the whole team. So I'm going to say no, but I do think he's going to improve United better. Like, by the time he leaves, United will be better than what they were when he joined. It's kind of it, yes. There's a bit of a caveat, but I'm going to say no effectively.
All right, well, I'm going to give two sort of potentially contradictory answers to some degree, but I just looking at the table now, I don't see them finishing above 10th this season, because you look who's in 9th, Fulham on 30 points. So you're 7 points behind Fulham, who have had some rough results but are playing well. And then you've got Brighton, Brentford are a bit weird. Spurs are there as well. So sorry, United fan, I don't actually see you finishing above 10th this season. But as you said, it may be a blessing in disguise, because you may get more investment in the summer. But to flip that, do I believe United can challenge for the Premier League, maybe a UCL as well, under Amorim? I actually do think yes, because I don't think they're a million miles away in terms of the squad. I do actually think, as I said, I went through the team, but like a keeper, a keeper, a striker, a midfield, well, maybe they are far away, but there's enough quality players in there, I think. And on their day, we have seen they're capable. So I'd say they can, but it's going to be a big ask.
I'm confident they'll get top 10. I mean, the games they've got coming up are very winnable. Southampton, Brighton at home, both of them. Fulham away is more than winnable. Palace at home is winnable. Spurs away is winnable as well. Ipswich at home, in there, Everton away. They're all winnable games, and all the teams around them are just as capable of putting in poor performances like United have been doing. So they've got to be there to capitalise on it. But if the problem is those teams where they should be beating them, they're not beating them. They should beat them, and I'm confident they will. Long term, do I think he is the right man? Yes, I do. He will win a trophy before Arteta does. I am convinced of that. He will do it. I don't care. You can clip this, record it, embarrass it with me for the rest of my life. I do not care. He will do it. He is a very, very talented coach, and he will
But you
get
say a trophy, Reece. We're talking Premier League and Champions League. Maybe before, forget Arteta. But
he'll get that before Arteta.
No, but
He'll
will he do it at United?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's got more than possibilities of doing it. He's got a bigger challenge on his hands than he did at Sporting Lisbon. I know Sporting Lisbon could be famous for being a bit of a basket case in Portugal, but he's got it there. He's got the budget to do it. It's going to take a couple more transfer windows because the players they've signed, a lot of them are not his kind of play. It's going to take a while, but he will get there. I have faith in that, and I think they've got more potential in them now than the other teams do. You know, Liverpool we expect to drop off next year, year after, etc., because they transition with new players. Man City, depending on what happens with Pep, might take a transition. Chelsea, we know are going to be there and thereabouts as they're still transitioning. He's got the tools at his disposal. I wouldn't worry about Arsenal; they're not going to do it, so it don't matter. He will get there. So he's got the tools at his disposal on the platform to build. So I'm confident in him.
There you go. A lot of positivity to end the podcast on. United fans, make sure you've had your say. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.